Hello everyone, welcome to Terrace Talk. We're back in the familiar surroundings of the Wolfpack. It went very well last week, so we've decided to stay in here. Although, sadly, we can't be as positive as we were last week because we are reflecting on a Norwich City defeat. Two new guests, one who's been on before. You're one away from the hat-trick ball now, Terri. You, of course, came on, I think it was before the Manchester United game. We were sat outside Carrow Road, so this is a little bit warmer for you at least. And Craig Bailey, who's making his first appearance from the Norwich City Fans Social Club as well. Of course, we are going to be talking about Sheffield United and Southampton, of course, which is coming up on Saturday, all being well. And then we have got some quick-fire questions to go through as well. We might as well touch upon Tim Krul, who has been called up to the Dutch national squad. We've got Cheltenham on in the background, which is why there's a few people getting very excited as they try and cash in their bets. If you're watching this on video, iPhones here for microphone purposes. We're sadly not blessed with the finances of some other productions, but there we go. We may do with what we've got. So, Craig, we're going to come to you first. This is your Jeremy Paxman-like grilling from me.
Grill me like a juicy burger.
I am, but
Sorry, Terri.
but it's not going to be too tough, I promise. So we'll start with a nice, easy one. Where do you sit in the ground?
I currently sit in the Upper Barclay, so I go with my dad, but I have been a bit of a journeyman in several areas. So I started Lower Barclay many moons ago. Had a brief spell in the South Stand, an even briefer spell in the Norwich and Peterborough / River End in Old Money. I forget what they're called these days. But, and then moved back to the Barclay, but upper, because convinced my dad to come back. But he finds sometimes it's a bit distracting if it's in the Lower Barclay. So I compromised with him, gone for the Upper Barclay.
That's fair enough. You've preempted my second question. I was going to ask you who you go with, but you've answered that. So instead, I will ask you, of all the stands you've been around, which one's your favourite to be in? I think I know the answer to this.
The answer for me personally is the Lower Barclay, because I like a bit of a sing-song. But I didn't get on with the others. That's not to say that other people don't enjoy them. Absolutely respect their right to do whatever they like at football.
Yeah, different people support in different ways, don't they? Which is totally fine. What was your first game? Or I'll caveat this with what's the first game you can remember? Because I think my first game was in 2001, so I can't really remember that. But obviously for different people, it's different games, isn't it?
You're a young man, Connor, so yours in 2001. Mine, I have to go back a lot further, and I am ashamed to say I don't remember exactly which it was, but it would have been mid-80s sometime. Probably the season before we won the Milk Cup. It would have been one of the league games, so I didn't have a season ticket, so I had to go as and when. I've got a feeling it might have been West Brom at home, and I can't remember what the result was.
It's funny because usually I ask people that question, they go, it was a defeat and they lost by this much. So the fact you can't remember might suggest that it was probably a draw. I would hint at, but I'm sure someone will correct us.
8 or 9, so I genuinely can't remember.
That's fair enough. I'm sure someone will correct us, no doubt. What about your favourite game that you've been to? What's the favourite game you've watched at Norwich City?
So probably be an away game actually. And bizarrely enough, I know there wasn't a lot on it, but the away game against Man City under Chris Hughton. And the reason is, because I went to pretty much every away game under Chris Hughton, and that was not, that was a thankless task, being honest. And to see us beat Man City, albeit when they didn't have a lot to play for, and I've got Johnny Howson's shirt from that game.
Have you?
I have. And, so I was a bit of a Johnny Howson fan when he was here.
Was that the day he scored that goal?
That was the day he scored that goal, so I've got the shirt that he scored that goal in. So for that reason, that's my favourite one that I've watched.
Love that, great story. What about your favourite niche player? So everyone's got a player, haven't they really feel an affection with, that perhaps the wider Norwich City sphere would be like, why? So that's what I want to know. Who's yours?
So I've got loads, but the one I'm going to pick, because I was thinking about this when I've seen other episodes and what have you, but the one I'm going to pick is due to a mutual friend of Terri and ours, actually, and it's a left-back named Erik Fugelstad.
Right.
Now, not many people remember him, being honest, but our mutual friend Rob came up with a song for Erik Fugelstad, which was to the tune of Scooby Snacks by the Fun-Loving Criminals, which went running around robbing players of the ball, Erik Fugelstad, which I loved. And it never took off. But for that reason, no idea why, but I loved it.
That's
For
fair.
that reason, I'm going to pick Eric.
Maybe we can revive it somehow. I'm not sure how. If anyone can fit a current Norwich player into that, then we'll be well away. That's one for the Along Come Norwich gents, I think. Any pre-match rituals that you have? Footballers are a superstitious bunch. Supporters are as well. Do you have any that you abide by?
In general life, I'm completely not superstitious. When it comes to football, I am stupidly superstitious. So I've got lucky socks, which are yellow. I've got lucky boxers, which have been changed over the seasons and games.
And washed, I hope.
And washed, indeed, yep. I've got a Norwich City mug that I always have to drink my cup of tea out of in the morning.
Good.
And I've got a watch, which has got yellow and green, which is a more newer one. But yeah, they're the rituals.
I like them. There you go. That's your grilling over. That wasn't too bad, was it? It wasn't too bad.
Help, by the way.
No, I was going to, especially this season they haven't. No. Did you wear them for the Man City game?
I was out of the country for the Man City game.
Well, maybe yeah, exactly. You said it, not me. You said it, not me. Terri, let's come on to you then. This is your completely new set, never had before questions.
Right, okay.
I had to sort of sit around and work these out because usually it's just a formulaic because we have new guests, but this is your second appearance. So I'm going to kick off first one. Favourite loan signing ever?
Does Darren Huckabee count?
I'll let you have it.
Because he did come on loan, and he's got to be the best loan signing we've ever had. Definitely the biggest success. So I think I'm going to go with Darren Huckabee. And we've had some really good ones whose names I can't remember right now, so I'm going to stick with Huckabee.
Fair enough. I wondered if we'd have Sibierski or Lupoli today, but not quite.
Not in the running.
Quite. What about your favourite Norwich City manager? I think because a few years ago this perhaps would have been a fairly nailed-on answer, but it's a little bit interesting now, isn't it?
It is interesting, and actually I would probably say Dave Stringer is my favourite manager. Partly because of his long service for the club. Obviously, he was captain. He played in defence for many seasons. He then was a coach. He then was a manager, and he still was involved in the club after that. And you can argue that it was him that set up the team that went on to come third in the Premier League and go into Europe and beat Bayern Munich. So, and he's a lovely bloke. So I'm going to go Dave Stringer.
There we go. Can't beat a bit of Dave Stringer. We're going to dwell on a little bit of an interesting point, controversial topic, because we like to ruffle a few feathers. We spoke about this a little bit off air. What is your Norwich City unpopular opinion?
Well, I'm very much what people call a happy clapper, and I'm not that bothered if we get relegated. And that
I will respond to that with why.
Well, I mean, if we stay up, it would be brilliant. Don't get me wrong, but this season hasn't had a lot of fun in it. It's been a bit of a drudge, and the games aren't that frequent, and Championship is just so much fun. There's games, 2 games a week. There's goals aplenty. Anybody can beat everybody. I think you get better atmospheres in the ground. It's just more fun. And
no VAR.
Oh, I forgot all about that. Yeah, that as well. So if we go down, it's fine. We're not going to be any financial problems. The club will be fine. Players may go, but they may go if we stay up. So yeah, I'm a bit, let's say, fair about it.
I like it. I'm not sure that's as unpopular as you think it may be, but we'll see. What about your least favourite club? We're obviously going to exclude the obvious contenders for that. So Ipswich Town, Leeds, etc. Perhaps one you've got a bit of an obscure dislike for.
Well, it's not obscure, and it's going to really upset Russell Martin fans, but Milton Keynes. I was born in Wimbledon, so I have an affinity with Wimbledon Football Club, and obviously have had to restart and build again from the bottom as AFC Wimbledon. And there's still a bit of bitterness there, quite understandably, about their club was taken to them and became Milton Keynes. So, yeah, that's the club I really don't like.
Yeah, we all want to see Russ do well there, don't we? It's a difficult one, that, isn't it, for football fans? What about your favourite away ground? What's your favourite one that you like to visit?
That's a good question. I quite like some of the smaller grounds. I mean, not because of the ground itself, but because of the atmosphere. So, like going to Crewe away, like there's a chippy around the corner and there's a nice friendly pub. And I quite like going to those kind of places as well as the big sort of flashy stadiums. I went to Tottenham for the cup game, like most people did. And it was, yes, it's an amazing stadium.
It's like a spaceship, isn't it?
It is, especially at night with all the lights on and everything. But I do quite like those friendly grounds where you can just go and mix with the home fans in the pub and have a few beers, and I quite like that, actually.
Yeah, I quite like Rotherham, actually. I've got a bit of a soft spot for that. For that reason, actually. Yeah. I do quite like the smaller grounds. Bit different, as you say. Okay, last question for you. This for me is probably quite a tough one. We'll see how it is for you. Which is the one Norwich City player that you've been absolutely gutted to see leave?
That I've seen leave. Unfortunately, I've seen quite a few players leave.
I was going to say, it's probably quite
I mean, Darren Eady leaving was a bit of a shock, because he was a young and upcoming player, and he left at a time when there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes at the club. I remember being very gutted about that, so I think he's probably the one I remember the most. But yeah, there's a few times. Well, Chris Sutton as well. We all remember that famous interview where Robert Chase says, I'll be here if you're there, or whatever it is, and then he left almost straight away. So that was pretty gutting as well. So it's probably between Chris Sutton and Darren Eady.
Cool. That's your questions over. So we got through those. Okay, we're all still feeling all right. Yeah,
right.
Good. All right. let's sadly dissect into the football. Norwich City, of course, got beat 1-0 by Sheffield United at Bramall Lane on Saturday. Craig, let's come to you first. What are your reflections on this? It was after the Lord Mayor's show a little bit, wasn't it?
It was a bit.
Did you feel that?
I did feel that. It's often the way, when you have a game like Spurs game and what have you. We both went to extra time. They had a day extra, obviously. But I don't know, it was frustrating but sort of expected, if I'm going to be honest. So they've got that system, haven't they, where they overload the flanks, the overlapping centre-backs, as they call it. And nobody seems so far this season to really have sorted that. And I don't know, it felt like, if I'm honest, I think we've got better footballers than Sheffield United. Probably they wouldn't agree, I'm sure. I've been berated by a few of their fans on Twitter before. I'm sure I will again. But I think we've generally got better footballers than them. But I'm not saying that they're just a big team, because they're more than that. They're definitely more than that. But they are bigger than us, and they played their game really well, and we didn't deal with it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. In terms of individual players, you probably, like, for example, if you compare speculation, there's been a lot more speculation around the Norwich City players than there have the Sheffield United players. But yet Sheffield United are where they are in the league. Exactly. They're probably a better team, aren't they? Yeah. So it's an interesting one. Terry, let's come to you. Were you at Bramall Lane on Saturday?
No, I did think about going, and at the last minute I thought, no, after having had the late night, go to Spurs, And I thought we might get a draw. I actually thought we might get a draw, because I know they've been surprising a lot of teams in the Premier League this season, but I thought, well, we know them really well, and we know their players, their manager well, and I thought we'd be able to match them. And we nearly did. If that chance from Godfrey had gone in, we would have got a draw, and I would have been really happy with the draw, because that's a really good result. But unfortunately, we couldn't quite hang on. And I've been to a few away games this season, and let's face it, they've been pretty grim. I've been seeing 2-0, 3-0, 2-0 away from home. So it was disappointing, but probably not completely unexpected, if I'm honest. I'm not surprised that they sneaked it, but I was just hoping we were going to get that point.
Yeah, it's what Sheffield United do. It's why they've had such a good season. They keep themselves in games, they take their opportunities, they get 3 points. It's kind of the story of the season. But I suppose equally there'll be a lot of Norwich fans, again, looking enviously to Sheffield United and what they've achieved this season. But by the same token, if you look at Sheffield United's injuries, I think of their back three, I think John Egan's missed one fixture. If you compare that to Norwich City, it's stark, isn't it?
It is stark, and when you look at the stats of, often when you go up, people say, you're going to score enough goals. But actually, if you look at the stats, it's actually the teams who go up who can defend better, who tend to do better.
Yeah.
So in that respect, they were always probably a little bit more set than we were, because we weren't exactly brilliant at defending in the Championship. But that being said, I can't help feeling it's one of those frustrating seasons, and I kind of think if we didn't have the amount of injuries we had early on in the season, I don't think we'd have been in the position we are now. I'm not saying we'd be where they are. I don't think we would have been, but I think we'd have been more in the hunt for the sort of mid to lower of the bottom half than we are now, for certain.
Yeah, I think there'd be some inside the walls. Probably Daniel Farker would agree with you, actually, with that. Teemu Pukki, I want to talk about him. He's in a bit of a weird bit of form at the moment, isn't he? Where obviously it's not quite. Daniel Farker described it as saying he needs to score a dirty goal, which I think is what Steve McLaren calls not a real goal, or whether he described his goal off his shoulder last season. He does need one of them. It's just not falling for him at the moment, is it? In the same way it has done throughout his Norwich career so far.
No, I think we've been spoiled, because basically since he started, when he came to us, he's just hit the ground running and just been scoring goals for fun. And every striker goes through a period where they don't score, and he was really lucky. Like, you go back to that Spurs home game and the VAR goal that was disallowed, which had never been disallowed, and almost since then he's really struggled. And the thing is, he works so hard. He's one of the hardest working players on the pitch. He'll get back and defend, and he'll win the ball if we've lost possession. So he brings a lot to the team other than goal scoring. But unfortunately, nobody else has picked up that mantle. So he's not scoring, nobody else is scoring, and suddenly we're looking really thin when it comes to goals. And I can imagine that he's probably getting a bit tired, and he's obviously, coronavirus aside, he might have a really busy summer coming up, because obviously he'll be playing for Finland and he'll want to be fresh for that as well. So you do think perhaps it is time to give him a rest, and you think if he does get that, he'll probably come back and get a hat-trick.
Yeah, you do. He's played a lot of football, hasn't he? A lot of minutes he's played. Do you feel like Norwich have been a little bit too over-reliant on him? Because the way they play, he's obviously a goal scorer. I mean, he was always going to play a lot of this season. But equally, he is to Norwich what he is to Finland. He's the main man, he's the main goal-getter. They struggle without him, don't they? And are we kind of seeing a Teemu Pukki that's quite fatigued, both with minutes on the pitch, but equally mentally, with how much pressure is being put on him by both club and country?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was at the Newcastle 0-0, and there was a one-on-one he had there that last season he would have buried it, absolutely buried it. But now, I don't know if he's just that fraction of a second too slow, or there's a bit of doubt in his mind. He's not finishing just as he has done. And he's a great player, and he's brilliant for us. But I think it probably is time to rest him. And that's not because I think there are better strikers than him, just because I think he needs a couple of weeks off, rest, get himself back into top form again, and then he'll come back and be back to his best again.
Yeah, Craig, what do you make of Teemu Pukki at the moment? Would you give him a little bit of a rest?
I'm not sure I'd give him a rest, but I think I'm right in saying that when he first came to us, he played sort of attacking midfield left for a little spell. And one of the things that struck me against Sheffield United is how open our fullbacks were to that overlap. And, I'm not one of the Campbell bashers by any stretch of the measure. The guy's been brilliant. But he looked dead on his feet from the cup game, and he offered no help to Lewis whatsoever in that first. I don't think he could physically. So I'm wondering whether you could bring Drimic in up front, switch Pukki there. His work rate's really good, so he's going to provide a bit more cover. And whether that's a way of getting them both in to the team or not, don't know. So
yeah, I was going to come on to Josip Drmic, but just finally on Pukki, that toe injury that he got against Leicester, do you feel like he's still feeling the effects of that? Because I remember in that game at the King Power in the second half, after that incident had happened, he'd had almost an identical chance to the one he converted, and he didn't quite connect to it in the same way, and it's not happened since.
No, it's not happened since, and I think you're bang on with that. I think for us, I don't know if he still is, but certainly for a period he was playing with injections to numb his toe and numb that area. Now, if you numb your main tool, hey, pardon the phrase, but he's going to have a problem, isn't it? He's going to have a thought of, I can't quite feel that ball correctly, I'm not sure if I'm going to strike it.
It's self-doubt.
It's self-doubt, and he's a confidence player. He's a classic confidence player, and when he's on song and confident, he looks like he'll never miss. He looks, ice cool, and he's never going to miss. And since then, being honest, he hasn't looked like that. And, also, as a fan, when you're watching and you saw him go through, you didn't have any doubt, did you? You're like, goal, you're getting ready to celebrate. Yeah. Now you wait, because you're thinking, I'm not sure. And that's not criticism. I think it's genuinely that he's had that problem. It's in the back of his mind. I also think he is, pretty tired. He is the main man mentally as well as physically. Being the main man for us and Finland, it's going to have an effect at some point. So yeah, I think it's definitely had an effect. Whether we could have managed that better, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because Drimic hasn't been fully fit all season either. So you come back to the injury situations. Ida again wasn't available at that particular time, I don't think, from memory. It's really difficult.
Yeah, Ida played once against Manchester United, didn't he, and had a really difficult afternoon. Although I think any striker would have had a really difficult afternoon the way Norwich City played that afternoon at Old Trafford. Josip Drmic, there's been a lot of calls both on social media, throughout the fan base really, for him to start this game against Southampton coming up. I felt he did fairly well when he came on against Leicester, did exactly what Norwich needs to do, hold the ball up, flicked it on, managed the game, I think is probably the term we'll use, did quite well. Would you like to see him start against Southampton?
Yeah, I think he did quite well against Spurs in the Cup as well. I think he definitely deserves a chance. I think, with the Teemu Pukki situation, I'd be quite happy to see Drmic come in. I think, he got a goal. Again, it might be a little bit of a fluky goal that he got against Spurs, but it doesn't really matter right now. He'll be full of confidence. He seems to be full of energy and running, which is what we need right now. Why not? Why not give him a chance?
Yeah, there was some nice quotes from him that my colleague Dave Freezer put together, where I think the exact quote was, "I live for this, I dream for this," or something. After when he spoke about that Spurs goal, which sounds like the lyrics of a new song. After his
song coming, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. After his hit, what was it?
I'm going to check out.
No Tomorrow, which was interesting. So, if you both want to see Dermot, which I kind of feel is the vibe, would you go for a 2 then, or would you just stick with Dermot and drop Pukki out altogether?
Wow, there's a question. After having said that, I think Pukki needs a break. I would put him on the bench, because the thing is, you can then bring him on if you need him, I think. And if you go to, we can quite easily go to 2 up front, but obviously that means changing all the positions behind. And you think, this late in the season, do we want to start changing formation? I mean, I don't know. But the thing is with Southampton is we kind of need to win, but we also really can't lose. And it's like, you don't want to take too many risks, because, if we get a draw, it's not the end of the world. But if we lose, then you're thinking, how is that actually going to set us up for the rest of the season? So it's like, do you take a big gamble and change the formation and the way we play for one game that we really have to win? I would err on the side of caution and probably just switch, put Pukki on the bench, bring him on if we need him, start with Dermot and keep it the same system.
That's interesting. We saw Daniel Farke change it in the second half against Sheffield United. He went to a diamond, which a lot of Norwich City fans associate with Paul Lambert, don't they? But yeah, and it did kind of work to an extent. They looked to find Dermot sort of in the air, and he knocked it down. They tried to play off him. Is that something that could work this weekend for you?
It could. It's interesting because obviously Drimic is a very different player to Pukki, completely different type of striker. Pukki's never going to be one who wants to win headers. In fact, that's why he had his doubts about joining English football. So for me, I think, don't want to sound like I'm a broken record with injuries, but I think if we'd have had fit centre-backs this season, we probably would have seen 3 at the back a lot more, with Lewis and Aarons as wing-backs.
I'd agree.
But we can't do that. But if you do that, then you can get 2 up front. My view is probably what I said earlier, is I'd probably play Drimic, but I'd probably put Pukki on the left side of the attacking 3, and I'd really like to see Buendia in the middle of that attacking 3 as well.
See, that was my next question. So if Pukki's moving to the left for you, does that mean one of Buendia or Cantwell drops out, or are you just shifting Buendia across and dropping Duda out?
I would drop Duda out and put Buendia in the middle. Because really, in Duda and Cantwell and Buendia, you've got 3 players and Stiepermann, you've got 3 players who want to do the number 10 role. We play that narrow, so they're all attacking midfielders, and then use the fullbacks wider. But I don't know, I think one of the tactical things against Sheffield United would have been if you could have played somebody who's a bit more, in those wide areas, a bit more savvy. I know Roop has had a lot of stick, but actually it was probably the type of game where maybe he should have played, and actually would have been a bit more defensive-minded. But against Southampton, I think you've got to stick with the 4-2-3-1 that's been doing as well. But I think maybe a change on the switch Pukki back a little bit, bring Drimic in, Buendia in the middle, Cantwell on the right, drop Duda down. I think Duda's a really good player, but I've always been suspicious of lone players when you're in a dogfight. He's not going to be here next season, other than showcasing himself, which I'm sure he wants to do. He hasn't got a lot to play for like some of the other lads.
No, I'd agree. I think perhaps beyond his debut, and I'd argue the second half against Leicester, we haven't really seen too much on him, which is a bit of a shame given his pedigree. We've spoken a lot about the attack. I want to speak about the other end of the pitch. Tim Krul, today it was, we're recording this on Wednesday, he's been recalled to the Netherlands provisional squad, which is a squad of about 30. I think Leroy Fair is also in it, if for those interested. First time since 2015. He actually got that bad knee injury in a game for the Netherlands, which was his last, in a 2-1 win over Kazakhstan on an artificial pitch. Quite some journey he's been on to get back here, but it just goes to show how good he's been this season, and really how big a journey he's been on, I think, since he joined Norwich, and probably even before that. Yeah,
definitely. I think you can see that when he came to Norwich, he saw it as an opportunity that he took with both hands. And he was, there were a few little mistakes and errors in the early part of his time at Norwich City, but that's just because he hadn't been playing. But by the end of last season, he was one of the first names on the team sheet. He was super reliable. Almost like the whole way we played was built from the back, and the way he played the ball. And this season, we've had one of the reasons I think we've struggled this season, we've got a lot of inexperienced players in the squad. So we've really relied on experience. And the one who has that in spades is obviously Tim Krul. And that's no it's no surprise that he's ended up being our player of the season, I think, this year. And obviously after the heroics at Spurs in the Cup, showing that he can actually win a game, win a tie for you as well. It's brilliant, and you could see that he just enjoys it so much. He really appreciates the opportunity that Norwich has given him and getting promoted with Norwich, and now he's been outstanding this season.
I would say he's returned back to where he was before he left Newcastle. Actually, when he was getting linked to Manchester United and clubs like that, he's been superb this year. And of course, this ties in with Ralph Fearman, who has left the club. He's gone to Norway, hasn't he, on loan? Bran, where he's ended up, I think, till March or till the summer or something. No, their season starts in March. He's there till the summer. That's it. I get confused. What way do you lean with this? Because I've seen a few people say, well, it was poor recruitment, just shows how poor the summer was. But equally, you could argue he did his job, really. He pushed Tim Krul. Tim Krul has excelled. Yeah. What side of the argument do you sit on?
I'm definitely on the latter. So I think, getting him in, did Krul have any realistic competition before he came in? I don't think he did. So, you need competition in the squad. So he came in. There's two things with Krul. One, he knows he's got competition. Two, he's had a full season under his belt for the first time in like 3 or 4 seasons. So when he did come in, he got a little bit of stick from some fans, but, he needed games. And as Terry said, as the season went on, he got better and better. And this season he's been superb. So I think it's a good move. They're not always going to work out. He wanted to be in the first team. Krul wanted to be in the first team. Krul played better. That's it. Thanks, Ralph. Although he did almost drive into the back of me once in the Norwich City car park in his car. So glad to see the back of him. No, he did. I'm not.
Well, he didn't see the back of you, did he? He didn't exactly. Back, so there you go. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I was kind of thinking this week, but on the point you just made, if Norwich City had a Tim Krul figure in midfield, maybe this season could have gone differently. Because if you think about perhaps 3 of the most consistent performers, you'd say, well, Tim Krul, Alex Tettey, Sam Byron would be right up there. 3 players with Premier League experience.
Yeah, exactly. And Grant Hanley as well has done superbly this season. And you can tell that it's the younger players or the people who haven't played at this level are the ones that have struggled a bit, which is kind of understandable. If they've never played at this level, never played with these kind of players, then they're going to take a little while to settle in, which is that, alongside all those injuries that we had at the start of the season, meant it was really difficult. And it is, if we had more of Tim Krul's experience throughout the squad, we could probably be in a better position. But getting those players in is another matter, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yeah. Right. Let's just wrap up this Krul debate then. I suppose the question is, Craig, and Terry's already given him the Barry Butler Trophy. Would you? Has he been player of the season for you?
I think it's yes is a short answer, but I think there's some notable mentions for Todd Cantwell in there, who I think has surprised absolutely everybody except maybe himself. But yeah, I think Krul edges it just because of the consistency. But yeah, Todd, I think, will be second, being honest, and maybe Max third.
No place for Pookie.
I don't think he'll get in the top 3 this season.
Buendia?
Do you know what? That's probably a good shout. He will, because I love Emmy, don't get me wrong, as everybody does. But, if you look at some of Huck's tweets, he does need to improve his end product, doesn't he, ultimately?
Let's talk Southampton then. We kind of touched upon it, but is this... I feel like as we accelerate towards Saturday, terms like must-win, 6-pointer, they're all going to be used. But it does kind of feel like that, because if Norwich City do want to pull off this little miracle, although I'd argue it's slightly bigger than that.
Quite a big miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. Then their home games are going to be crucial. They pretty much have to win all of them. And I think one draw away from home would give them 39 points, which you would imagine would probably be enough. So home games are massive. This one is massive, isn't it? Oh,
it's absolutely massive. And I think like the last home game against Leicester was massive. The home game against Bournemouth was massive. We've got to win all of our home games to have any chance. So yeah, we need to win. Obviously, we've got this cup run happening at the same time, which at the moment actually hasn't been a distraction. It's actually helped to raise players up to performing at the league level. So it's been a positive so far, and I hope that it does continue to be so as well. Because obviously now we've got the Everton game that's now going to be rearranged and going to be played later in the season. Whether that's going to be an advantage to us or not, we don't know yet, because we don't know what it's going to be. But yeah, we have to win. We just have to.
Yeah, it's as simple as that, isn't it? Norwich do have to win.
Yeah, if we want to stay up, we've got 5 home games left, or 5 in a row, which I think are winnable. Before that season, I looked at those and thought, do you know what, we could win those. But the truth is, we could win all of those and still go down realistically. I think the thing I struggle to think about is, are there going to be, another 3 teams that finish below us from where they're at? So it's not just us who has to be, absolutely magnificent from now on. We need other teams, and Villa are trying really hard, bless them, so that's nice of them. But and Bournemouth too, really. But it's will there be another one? Will a Brighton or somebody else get dragged into it? And it's tough, but we do have to win them. It's that simple, and it's not easy.
Yeah, I wonder if Brighton will slip into it. They've got a really tough run of fixtures before they come to Carrow Road, starting with Arsenal this weekend. Although we saw after Leicester, didn't we? Norwich City win, everyone else wins as well, which I think was the first time in like 5 years that's happened, which is very typical.
Sums the season up, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Southampton. What do you make of them? Obviously, no Redmond. Nathan Redmond's injured. Angus Gunn, of course, has been out of favour since that 9-0 defeat, which I think is always a bit harsh for a goalkeeper, isn't it, when they get that blamed? But Danny Ings, 15 goals this season. Norwich City are going to need to stop him. But Southampton generally have picked up in the league, haven't they?
Yeah, they've had a very mixed bag this season, but they're not going to be by any stretch of the imagination a walkover. But then, we're bottom of the table. Any team we play is going to be better placed than us right now. But we've proved that, when Leicester came, they were a third place team and they came to Carrow Road and we beat them. So we have got the ability to do it on the day. But it's all about getting the tactics right and getting everything ready for that game. But I'd happily sneak another 1-0 win. Very much, thanks.
Yeah, I think we'd all take that. Ruthlessness, that's the key word that comes to mind when I think about Norwich City this year. Both boxes haven't quite been ruthless enough. Leicester City, we talk about that win, but it was a moment of quality, wasn't it? They're going to need more of that.
We will need more of that, and you mentioned the ruthlessness in each box, and that's really where Sheffield United were better than us. Ultimately it's a really tight game, and it is, fine margins. I know people are probably sick of hearing terms like fine margins, but it is. And we've not lost many by a lot. But you're right, we need to, again, before Sheffield United score, we have a chance and don't put it away. And then, you can see the players drop back a bit, their players get their heads up a bit, and it's just, there's been so many games like that this season. The Wolves at home was another classic where we dominated for an hour and then managed to lose it. So
yeah, it's almost like they've found a way to lose games a bit too often, which is a little bit of a shame. And this was kind of where I've been in the start of this week. It's kind of like, well, lots of people are saying Norwich have played well and they're the best 20th place team, but what constitutes a good performance? Because he's playing well and having lots of nice passages of possession, which they do, and they do a lot of things well. Is that a good performance, or is it actually what Sheffield United did, which is to sit in, take a moment of quality and win games? It's a difficult balance for sure,
isn't it?
It is.
And I think with the Leicester game, though we scored the 1 goal, we had lots of chances. It's just we kept hitting him straight at the keeper. It's like we're missing that little bit of skill that was just like, right, instead of going straight for the keeper, go for the top corner. Whereas last season we would hit the ball and it hit the back of the net. It didn't seem to magically happen. Whereas this year we seem to be really struggling with that finishing. So we're getting the chances, we're getting in the box, but then we're just hitting straight at the keeper.
Confidence, it's like a switch, isn't it? It seems easier to turn off than it does on, that's for sure. I think that's pretty much all bases covered. Craig, Norwich City Fan Social Club.
Yep.
You're obviously on here for a reason.
I am.
Tell us a little bit about the event that's coming up on Thursday evening.
Okay, so a little bit about the social club. So I'm sure most people will have heard of us. If not, then we're basically a group of volunteers who organise events over the season, and that's primarily one of our main focuses, is to get Norwich fans together and have a good time. Another one is to raise some money for the Community Sports Foundation, which we do really well at. And this next event, it's a great one for people of Terri and My's vintage, but also for some of the younger ones if you want to come along. It's meet the class of 93. It's tomorrow night, doors open at 7, should start at 7:30. It's £3 on the door for adults, £1 for under 16s. There's a raffle for the CSF, and we've got a memorabilia table for some kindly donated items that will be up for purchase. We've got Darren Eady, Jeremy Goss, Ruel Fox and Rob Newman. So if you want to come along and hear about that, absolute heroes, when we played in Europe, and you can talk about, the Bayern Munich game, Vitesse Arnhem, Inter Milan. You can maybe quiz Rob Newman as to why he hacked down Ruben Sosa for that penalty. But, rather than me, because he's a big lad. But, So it should be a really good event, and if you'd like to come on, it'd be great to see people there.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It wasn't of my time, but I'm certainly looking forward to hearing some of the stories.
Imagine finishing third in the Premier League for some of the younger viewers, and I'm just glad social media wasn't about then, because if you think there was a lack of investment and taking an opportunity now, imagine finishing third and not building on it. Twitter would have blown up.
Would have blown up indeed. Yeah, it certainly would have. Terri, you're a columnist. I saw you. I'm not sure if you tweeted. You put it somewhere that you seem to get a column after they win. So, do we need to give you more columns? Is that the way this works?
I think is it 5 wins we've had this season?
I think so, yeah.
And I think I've written the column after 4 of them. So I've been ridiculous.
It's a good record.
It's ridiculously.
If you were a
lucky.
manager, you'd be pushing.
Yeah. I wish I had somehow an influence over it, but I've been very, very lucky with the columns that I've had this year. I think Brighton is my next one, so keep an eye on that result. But I really love writing for the column as well. I really enjoy it.
And they're very good indeed, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been good, quite therapeutic to get the Sheffield United defeat off all of our chests. I'm sure Southampton on Saturday we can look forward to. Certainly one that you'd put in winnable brackets, although whether that'll actually be the outcome or not, we'll see. Although for Norwich City, they are very much they do very much need a win now, given where they are. Craig, Terri, thank you very much for joining us. Guys, thank you very much for watching, listening, whatever your preferred platform, and we'll leave a review, like all that jazz that I have to give to you. That's the one. See, Terri's telling you to do it, not me, so you have to do it now. Thank you very much. We'll catch up after the Southampton game. Fingers crossed we're back to the positivity of last week, as opposed to perhaps the pessimism of this week. See you soon.